We're going to bring in Talib Starks after the debate is over to see, as a ref, to see what happened. But right now, folks, we're about to have the fight of the century with R.A. the Rugged Man, Long Island's greatest rapper of all time, and in the other corner, Mr. Jared Taylor.
Oh, he's already on.
He's already on. Jared Taylor is a racial realist.
I thought he was going to have some time to warm up.
Nope, we're diving right into it. Jared, I don't know how much to say about him. He's born in Japan, fluent in Japanese, very well-educated man. I find he talks like 1950s TV shows.
Like Elmer from Brain Damage.
He came over to my house once, and after he left, I said to my wife, "What do you think about that guy?" And she goes, "He's real smart." He will be debating R.A. R.A.'s initial interest here was to discuss eugenics. And on the poster, I said, "Is America racist?" But I don't see those two as very different subjects. I think it's inarguable that blacks are doing badly in America if you look at crime and education. And so the question is ultimately, whose fault is that? Is it the black man's fault, or are we somehow putting them in a bad situation? So let's start by asking Jared the simple question, is America a racist country?
Well, it depends on what you mean by racist. If you mean that the people in the United States, people prefer to be with people like themselves, then that's the case all around the world. But your question probably means, is America holding black people down?
Yes.
And the answer to that question is absolutely not. Blacks in America are the best educated, best paid, best medicated, best housed, best fed black people in the history of the world. And you have black people coming from all around the rest of the world trying to get in, banging on the doors to get in. I don't think they'd be coming here if they thought that wicked white men were trying to hold them down.
True, but there have been studies that have shown that a resume with a white name will tend to get accepted faster than a resume with a black name.
Yes, I've heard that. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. The fact is, if you apply to Harvard and you've got a black name, you can get in with SAT scores that are about 200, 300 points lower than a white person. I think there may be swings and roundabouts on that.
So do you believe that racism is a big issue in America?
Black people make a big issue of it. I think they're their own worst enemy in that respect.
Well, I mean, if you go online and you read comments from anybody, like any black person that has an article written about them, it doesn't matter who it is. It's like, oh, the black guy from the hood, the black. I mean, all you see is hatred for blacks. Or go on any article you've ever read from any, have a picture of a black person, and it's, oh, this is Obama's puppet, or this is, I had a friend, Sean Price, greatest rapper. He just died the other day, and I went to People magazine, I went to all their sites, and all the comments were like, this ignorant black ghetto thug, I'm glad he's gone. It's like, yo, like so for people to act like racism doesn't exist anymore, it's just ignorance and untrue.
You see very little of that kind of thing. In fact, on the contrary, in the media today, if you look on television or movies, blacks are invariably depicted in the most flattering poses, far more so than would be the case in any kind of real life. If you've got a wise judge or you've got the heroic detective, chances are it's a black man.
But why are you avoiding the comments if you just go online and read the comments?
But those might be a bunch of 13-year-olds who are frustrated. They're frustrated that they can't say that in public.
So why don't the 13-year-olds say it on white people?
There are millions of comments online. You can cherry pick comments. I mean, you can do that all day long. I don't think that proves anything. You can find plenty of people saying insulting things about blacks.
So do you...
The idea of somehow using comments as some sort of proof or indication of the state of the American mind, I think is crazy.
Okay, so Jared, you believe white people and Asian people are superior beings to black people and Hispanics, right?
On average, the evidence is overwhelming that that's the case. That's obvious.
Really?
I mean, that's the only way. That's the only way. That's the only way that you can explain the past 500 years of world history. So if blacks are just as smart and hardworking as white people, why is it that wherever you find them, anywhere in the world, they have all the same problems: poverty, crime, illegitimacy? Wherever you find them, in black countries, white countries,
not true. The richest man in the history of the world is a black man, Mansa Musa, black African, richest man in the history of times. Oh, if you go all over the world, blacks are poor. Yeah, maybe at this time there's more. At this particular, you're thinking like small, minute, little guy shit. The thing is, if
little guy. Where are they not poor? Where are they not poor?
What are you talking about?
Show me an African country where
the richest man in history was a black man. The richest man ever in history was a black man. And then you brush it off and go, well, if you go to Ghana today, they're not so rich. Or
one guy.
One guy. You know how many black men on the planet have higher IQs than you, are smarter than you, are richer than you, are physically better looking than you, physically more attractive than you, and more successful than you. So
who are you
talking about? One guy. I'm talking about. What are you the most? You're telling me you have a higher IQ than all black people?
Look. It is possible to find smart people in every race, no question about it.
Smarter than you, though.
On average, I think that there is no evidence anywhere to suggest that the average black person is as smart as the average Asian. The world simply does not make sense if that were true. There would be some area in which black people demonstrated their intelligence, demonstrated their discipline, demonstrated their self-control.
Yeah, all the ones who were smarter than you and richer than you and more successful than you.
Area in which that's true.
So Jared, do you believe that most white Americans believe what you believe?
I'd say probably about 30 to 40%, and also I'd say about 30 to 40% of black people think the same thing.
That white people
They're not stupid after all. They look at the world. They look at the world around them, and they see black people failing in every domain, and they're not so brain dead as to think that it's because vicious white people are rubbing their hands and saying, "How am I going to keep black people down?"
See, wait. But if you believe that 30 to 40% of Americans believe that whites and Asians are superior to blacks, then you just lost the argument because you're claiming that 30 to 40% of Americans are racist that believe they are superior to blacks. So you're
what I'm saying is probably 30 to 40% of white Americans, and as I said, 30 to 40% of black Americans think that on average,
that's untrue.
White people are smarter than black people. Now, that doesn't mean that you have any ill will for black people.
Find me those black people who believe that. That's just a made-up, silly statistic.
You said to me once,
30 to 40% of blacks believe that
in fact,
whites are smarter than them.
There are polls that will suggest that black
taken by a white man.
So everything white people do is, well, okay.
Well, if there's a poll that's manipulated by a white man to say that look, we're better than you, of course.
Look, for heaven's sake.
What?
If a pollster calls up black people and says, "Do you think on average white people are smarter than black people?" If they don't think that they are, they're going to lie about it? No, I think I could dig up a poll that suggests that black people, probably 20 to 30%, they could see that. Well, I can't find them individually. I can point you to polls. I've met several myself that did think that. But look, it doesn't make any difference what people think. It makes more difference what the facts in fact are. And you're using the word superior, but blacks are superior to whites in athleticism, for example. I think they probably have some greater abilities in rhythm, in music.
Depending on which white, depending on which black.
Can I interrupt?
We're talking about averages here.
Jared, can I interrupt you?
Yeah, but what is what?
No, hold on. Just I want to differentiate between general and universal because this comes up a lot. And the bell curve, I just sketched this out right now. I don't know if you can see this, Rat. But the bell curve basically said that when discussing millions of people, blacks tend to do worse on IQ tests generally, and whites tend to do about the middle, and Asians tend to do highest. But obviously, there's a major overlap at the bottom here where you have, say, hundreds of thousands of blacks smarter than hundreds of thousands of Asians. And I had Steve Saylor work out the numbers once, and I think even you were a little surprised by how many there was. But in no way are we talking about a universal here. If you meet a black guy, you have to start from scratch. And in the bell curve, they make that very clear. It's a blank slate every time. You could be meeting Thomas Sowell. You could be meeting
course.
a murderer. You don't know. But you're allowed to generalize when you talk about millions. No one is saying anyone's better than anyone, but we are. I think Jared's saying that the vast majority of Asians tend to do better on IQ tests than the vast majority of blacks.
Well, that's what
I just said.
You're just saying that they beat him at IQ. That's your only theory?
What?
That's all you're saying? I think he's saying a lot more.
Will you concede that, though?
That maybe an Asian, well, no, I don't see it. If you raise a black child, a white child, and an Asian child in the same household, same family upbringing,
glad you got that. That's the fundamental.
And you're going to give me some fake statistic that they actually did that once.
No. I'm just glad you went there.
A black child raised by the same parents, in the same household, the same surroundings, has just as much of a chance as doing good on an IQ test than an Asian baby, an Indian baby.
Mr. Thorburn, that test has been done.
How?
It's been
Who
done
did it?
Several times.
Who did it? Who are these children that were all in the same household?
Come on. You take black children and you adopt them and you rear them in white households. You can take black people. You can take mixed race black and white people. It's been done.
When?
And in the early... When? There's a famous Minnesota study about that. Look up Sandra Scar on the internet.
So they did to one person and that's the thing?
Okay, you're going to say white people put this study together, white people can't be trusted to do anything.
What about a white boy that was raised in Chicago?
Yeah, let me finish.
Okay.
In the first few years, there seemed to be an encouraging effect of family on the IQs of blacks. By the time they were 16 years old, however, the black children who had been adopted and reared in middle-class white families, they had dropped right back down to the black average. So this test has been tried.
Who are these kids? Show me them. Let's interview them. Who are these children? I'd like to see them all in the same house under the same situation.
Well, what about identical twins separated at birth? We find them, one grew up poor, one grew up rich. They end up with similar dogs, similar jobs. Right. One's in film, one's reviewing film. Their husbands look similar. Their cars look similar. They have the same median income.
Twins. What does that have to do with a black man?
I'm saying that what defines you happens at birth. Why do these identical twins always end up being the same when they're raised totally differently?
Take a white boy, raise him in the streets of Chicago where there's gunfire everywhere, and raise him that way, okay? Then take fucking Tom Cruise's black adopted son and see which one is likely to be involved in crime in his fucking life. It's not going to be the black kid, Connor.
That's valid.
It's going to be the white boy that was raised in the thug streets of Chicago with gunfire.
Tom Cruise's son is not going to be involved in crime. We know that.
You're free to believe that issue if you wish, Mr. Thorburn, but there have been many studies trying to tease out the difference between environment and IQ. The point that Mr. McInnes is making is that intelligence that you're born with is going to have a far more profound effect on you than the environment in which you're reared. That's the significance of identical twins separated at birth. Environment doesn't make that much difference. They're going to turn out the way they're going to turn out.
But Jared, throw the bone here. You have to admit.
Environment makes all the difference in the world.
Jared,
this is the silliest thing I've ever heard.
You have to admit that Tom Cruise's... Hold on. You have to admit that Tom Cruise's black son is likely going to do great.
It all depends on what he was born with. It all depends on what hand he was dealt by the genetically roulette.
He's a black man. Is he? You think he's likely to have crime more than a white boy in Chicago or Detroit?
I don't know, but I think he's got the genetic deck stacked against him. Yes, he does.
Oh, to do crime? In fact, so you believe skin color? You believe skin color?
No, it's not skin color. It's something far more important than skin color. Skin color is a mere detail.
Okay, so what do you believe? You believe that they are born as criminals? They are more likely to perform crime because they have a black body and black genetics?
Black genetics is what matters most. Black people have lower average intelligence and higher average testosterone. That is a classic combination for higher crime. If you find people in jails, they have lower IQ than average, they have higher testosterone than average. Black people, on average, are born with 2 strikes against them in that respect. I'm not saying it's their fault. That's just the way
it
the different races evolved.
Like M. Night Shyamalan. Listen, let me tell you something. White people and Asian people are the superior race to you, right? They've killed more human beings in history. They've killed more human beings in history ever than blacks, Asians, and whites have murdered and have been more violent in history ever. Killed. Let's go down.
They've also made some really cool stuff.
Look,
who killed more people, white people or black people?
If black
or
people
Asians
had
or black
managed to
people?
invent the kinds of killing machines that they could not invent, that only whites could invent, and only
we're talking about the
Asians could
1200s,
master,
the
I think
1300s.
blacks would have killed a absolute record-breaking number. Look at what happened in Rwanda and Burundi just with machetes.
Okay.
They killed 1 million of each other.
Okay,
just
so what
with
about
machetes,
1200s
for
and
heaven's sake.
1300s?
Imagine if they'd had machine guns and
Didn't
tanks.
Hannibal in Africa
exactly.
try to invade Europe?
Check it out.
Yeah, he did.
What about the Mongols? 60
What
million
about?
killed. They didn't have the technology of the smart white man today. It was the Mongols. They killed the most. So,
Look,
then you go down
you
the
think-
line. No, let's go down the
So
line through
what?
worlds.
So what?
So what? You're talking about black people are more violent genetically
Yes, they are.
than white.
Yes,
Then
they
why
are.
do white people and Asian people kill more in history than they've ever killed? And you're saying it's because they're not smart enough to make the weapons, but historically, before those weapons existed, they still were killing. Like look from World War I, 40 to 50 million deaths. World War II, 80 million deaths. Mongol invasion estimated 60 million killed. Dynasty wars, 25 million kills. Taipan, Southern China, 20 million. Chinese Civil War, 7 million people. Russian Civil War, 8 million people.
You don't think
Where
that
did the black
Shaka
people
Zulu-
kill?
Shaka Zulu killed plenty of his own people,
Not
for
even
heaven's
close to-
sake.
not
Not
even close.
just enemy tribesmen. This whole question of how many people every particular different groups have killed is an irrelevance because it's a reflection.
so why is crime not irrelevant?
Hold on, let me finish. It's a reflection not just on any kind of warlike instinct, but it is also very much a reflection on the technical competence of the group. I think that if Shaka Zulu had the atom bomb, he would have dropped it on everybody in sight.
But we just said
He
we're
just
talking
didn't
about the
have the brains
1200s and
to invent it.
1300s before the atom bombs, and we're talking about eras that didn't have atom bombs. So you keep going. Oh, if they had the atom bombs, they would have
Let's
did
focus on the 1300s then. Why didn't blacks kill as many as Asians in that century?
Well, there weren't as many of them, for one thing. The sub-Saharan population of Africa was really quite small. They didn't have the organization. Look, if you don't have a written language, if you don't have mechanical devices, if you don't have a calendar, if you don't have domesticated animals, your possibilities to kill on a large scale are somewhat limited.
The greatest empires in history were before the white people.
What happened to them? The white people steal their technology? Is that what happened?
No. But white civilization didn't even exist. So you're acting like, oh, they couldn't even, make a.
I'm talking about Africans. I'm not talking about Syrians.
Yeah, but they can't even raise a dog. They can't even make a dog work.
Okay, well, this is
but they could build a fucking pyramid.
This is come
No. Those are completely different people.
R.A. is convinced the Egyptians were
black. The people who built the pyramids
of course, the Egyptians were not white.
The people who built the pyramid were not sub-Saharan blacks at all. The most likely people that they resembled were today's Copts. They're the people who were there before the Arabs came by.
Oh, so you are one of these nut jobs like him who thinks that Egyptians were Caucasians?
Come on.
You thought they were Caucasians?
Mr. McInnes, are we going to deal with a guy who calls me a nut job?
Yeah, but if you think that Egyptians are Caucasians, you're a nut
He
job.
called me a nut job
look,
too, so at least you're in good
Listen,
company.
here's the thing. You call these people
I
different
never
names.
said they were Caucasian. They are a Caucasoid people,
That's not
but they're
true.
by no
That's not
means
true in Africa.
Caucasians. They are not black Africans. The people who built the pyramids by no means were black
They're
Africans.
the furthest things away from white Caucasians
Hold on,
than
hold
We
on.
have
Rat.
mummies.
Can I-
We have mummies of the people who built the
Yeah,
pyramids.
look at the
We
face
can
and-
count
look
their
at the face
nostril
scripture.
hairs. We can take their DNA. They are
King
not
Tut is a black
sub-Saharan
man. Look at his
Africans.
facial features. Look at King
we're getting
Tut.
carried away here. Stop. Rat, can you look up a picture of DNA Egyptians so we can see what...
Look at King Tut's tomb.
No, we want to see genetically what the DNA suggests Egyptians look like.
We have well-preserved mummies.
Yeah. Take
a
King
look
Tut.
at them. They don't look the least
King Tut
bit
has black
sub-Saharan
lips,
African.
black skin. Look at King Tut.
Gosh.
The sculptures on his tomb do look pretty African.
Yeah, they
Jared.
do. They are.
There are many depictions of Africans in ancient civilization and in ancient Egyptian wall art. What they are, they're depicting slaves. They're depicting conquered people who are coming to bear tribute to the conquering Egyptians. You can have many different races depicted on the walls of those tombs and the walls of those buildings. They accurately depict racial differences. They by no means suggest that people running the show were black Africans. Quite the contrary.
Listen, the furthest thing an Egyptian ever looked like in the history of the world is a Caucasian white man.
That's not true.
Of course it is the truth.
Pull it up.
Of course it is the truth.
They didn't have blue eyes and blonde hair.
Of course
that's
not.
True, but they did not look.
They had black
They looked
features.
Arabs.
Well, okay,
They looked more like Arabs, yes, and Arabs
I
are.
think
are
the term
Caucasians?
Arab's a little racist. I like to say Arab.
Anyway, I think I'd be curious to know why it is that if Africans, the sub-Saharan Africans, had such wonderful civilizations, why they're in such a sorry state today. Why is it that Haiti, which is populated by Africans, is in such a sorry state today? Why is it that Detroit's in such a sorry state? Are somehow white people all tricking them to be into a sorry state? Is that your explanation, Mr. Thorburn?
No, well, my explanation is time.
Is what?
Say again.
What's your explanation?
My explanation
for why blacks are in such a sorry state.
In America?
All around the world. Wherever you find black people.
Everywhere.
All around the world. Why black people in such a sorry state? There's a certain time that we're in right now, that black people aren't dominating the world. Historically,
When did they dominate?
we just talked about that. We didn't agree on it.
What? Did they dominate China? Did they dominate South America?
No,
For
but
heaven's
he's
sake,
saying
no.
that Motsumitsu guy was a time when blacks were dominating, and now
No,
they're
he
in
was-
a lull, and we're up.
No, but
and
when
they'll
you-
have
but
another up.
He was one rich guy.
Oh, he was the only one.
Yes.
His
How many?
father
Name
before him,
another.
his father, his son, the people before him. The
Great.
whole, what?
Great.
What? You're saying there was only one rich guy in the history of black people.
No, I'm not saying that, but he's the one who's come down in
Because
history.
he's the
as this guy who
richest man
sprinkled
in
gold
the
wherever
history
he
of the
went.
world. The richest man in the history of the world was a black man. So is he superior to the rest of civilization?
No, he was richer. That's all.
So then when
But look,
when you
well,
talk
listen,
about
but so-
the reason
but
why
I'm trying
blacks
to-
are inferior,
Stop, please. Just let. What RA
what?
is saying is he's saying blacks used to dominate when we were kings type talk, and he's including Egypt in that, and saying they've had their uptime and they've had their downtime, and we've had our uptime.
well, not even just blacks, non-whites.
Well, of course, Asians have built quite impressive civilizations. No one would contest that. Asians, on average, are smarter than Caucasians. But really, blacks as a group, Australian Aborigines as a group, some South Asian people, there's practically nothing that they can point to of any kind that could be described as a cultural achievement.
In the current, really cultural achievement, Oprah
Yes,
hasn't achieved more than you.
Look, name me.
Has
name
Oprah
me-
achieved more than you?
She's made a whole lot more money than
Has
I
she
have,
made
but
more
we're not
people
talk-
happy
we're
than
not-
you?
We're not talking
Has she
about.
touched more
we're
people
talking
than
about-
Anecdotal evidence.
Look, we're talking about groups of people,
Yeah,
not
but-
individuals.
Okay, well, you just said there's no one to point out. I'm saying
No, I'm
there's a whole-
talking about
Okay.
blacks left to their own devices. Oprah is a success
okay.
because she lives. Let me finish. Oprah is a success because she is able to use the white man's technology, the white man's infrastructure. If Oprah were
You sure
left
that's the
in an
white man's
all-black-
technology? It's not.
Yeah,
It's not Asian technology.
Look, Asians have been able to adapt it.
So
but
why'd you call it white man
electricity, the
technology?
steam engine, television, radio,
Who was Louis
computers, white
Latimer?
men invented all of those
Who
things.
was Louis Latimer? Black man.
And if Oprah Winfrey did not have all of this white invented technology to project her persona, she would be sitting in a circle along with her African pals. It's
There
all
are
dependent on the
countless-
white man's technology.
There's countless blacks and minorities that are smarter than you, better than you, more educated than you,
So what?
more successful than you, more rich than you. So
what?
you are a man that believes in eugenics. You believe that they should take certain people and not let them breed as much.
I've never said any such thing.
Oh, you're
And
not,
so
you're not a
what?
supporter of eugenics. Tell me your position on eugenics, then, so I could get it right, so I don't misquote you.
I think that we should discourage certain people from breeding and we should encourage others, but we shouldn't be forcing anybody to do anything. I think if the world were better educated on the importance of genetics, then I think some people would refrain from having children. They would know it would be best for them not to do that. I don't suggest a situation as in China where people are actually forced to avoid breeding. But the fact that there are certain blacks who are more intelligent and more accomplished than certain whites proves nothing. There are certain women who are taller than most men. That doesn't mean that women, on average, are just as tall as men. Individuals like that don't create the mass of society, and we have to look at averages if we're to understand any kind of nation's accomplishment, not the works of individuals.
So you believe that statistically that the white man is superior. So
look,
living your life with
the word superior. White people on average are smarter than black people. Asians on average are smarter than white people.
Yeah, but
black people on average are better athletes than whites. So in that respect, they are superior. The races are different. That's the essential thing.
And human beings are different. Human life is different. Each human life is a different human life than the other. So one black man can do better at sports. Another black man could do better at science. Another black man could do better at brain surgery.
Sure.
And
therefore what?
Okay, we're talking in circles here. I'd like to get to some questions here that I wanted to cover. I'd like to ask both of you if you think abortion is racist. Jared, you're first.
No.
But do you think that Margaret Sanger's agenda when she started Planned Parenthood was to reduce the black population because they are a scourge on society and we should have more abortions because abortions tend to be black?
There are quotations to that effect. I never met Margaret Sanger, but some of the things that are attributed to her do suggest that she wanted fewer black people living in the United States.
So do you agree with her?
Do I agree with her? I think that people are happier when they're among people like themselves. I think forced integration is wrong. I think it was a big mistake to bring black people here against their will. But no, I'm certainly not talking about sending anybody out of the country.
And would you encourage black abortions?
I think anybody who wants an abortion should have an abortion. I'm not encouraging any particular kind of abortion.
Are you pro-choice?
Yes, I think if it's fine. Well, sorry to disappoint you. I see both sides of that picture. I know that some people think that abortion is murder, and I sympathize with that view, but I think on balance, children should come into the world that are wanted by both parents, by two parents, in fact, not just one parent. And I think that abortion on balance prevents unwanted children from coming into the world, and I think that's a good thing.
Okay, all right. Do you think abortion is racist?
I think some of the abortion programs are racist. Yeah, I do. I think that Margaret, like I said, the whole basis of Margaret Sanger was to pull blacks and Jews out like weeds and take the people from poverty and not let them breed. And I do believe that. Yeah.
Margaret Sanger's been dead for decades. Who are you suggesting is promoting abortion just to kill black babies?
She's been dead. She's been dead for decades, but her whole structure lives on and is financed by the government by $500 million a year.
Who wants to promote abortion as a way to get rid of black babies? Name me a name.
I thought definitely heard this amongst my liberal friends where they talk about how the crime rate, and this was a big thing in Freakonomics. I think it was a mistake in Freakonomics, but they claim that the crime rate plummeted after Roe versus Wade, about 18 years after Roe versus Wade. And my experience with the left has been that abortion has been good for crime. And the sort of subtext there is that it means less unwanted black babies, and they're inferring that crime is basically the children of single mothers.
There could be something to that, but don't forget there have been plenty of white babies aborted too. I think that children who come into the world that are unwanted, children with only one parent and one parent that ignores or abuses them, I think chances are they're going to turn out worse than people who are wanted and loved by two parents.
Yeah, 40% of the abortions are from the black community, though. And
well, nobody puts a gun to their head and says, get an abortion. That's their idea.
Yeah, well, that is what...
Who forces them to have an abortion?
Nobody forces them to have abortions, no.
Okay, very good. So how come abortion is racist?
Because it's a power structure that's being promoted to, hey, this is what you should do, this is what you should do, and it's put in place, and it's 15-year-old girls, 18-year-old girls, 20-year-old girls, boom, boom, abortion, and they promote the hell out of
Jared,
it.
just in RA's defense here, in the I believe it was the 60s, in New York, there was a program encouraging Puerto Rican women to have their tubes tied and be permanently infertile. And
maybe so.
It was a choice. It was a choice thing, but there was some heavy propaganda behind it, and the indication was, look, you guys are too expensive with welfare. Let's stop you from having kids. And I think Puerto Ricans really resent New York to this day because they found out about that.
Well, I never heard of that program, but I think that if you are living on the public dole, you have got absolutely no right to bring yet more mouths into the world for the rest of us to have to feed and clothe and try to educate.
Why not?
Why not?
Yes.
I mean, if you were supporting some layabout brother of yours, you were paying his apartment, you were paying for his rent, you were paying for his groceries.
My brother into this. My brother's a hardworking guy.
Okay, let's imagine that you're doing this, and he comes to you and says, "Hey, the girlfriend's pregnant. You know, you're gonna have to start paying more money. We need a bigger apartment to live in." Would you be happy?
So
no, even your own flesh and blood.
So wait, your answer would be, but your answer
has a high voice.
Your answer would be to just kill the kid.
No, well, I mean, it's called abortion, and it's legal in all 50 states.
Yeah, but I'm saying that would be a thing. Oh, because they don't have the financial situation at the moment, they don't deserve the right to have a child.
The point is, if you are sucking on the public teat, I don't think you have the right to produce more mouths that are going to be sucking on the same public teat.
Some of the greatest human beings in the history of time have come from poverty and worked out of from being broke and coming from nothing, and they ended up being great people in history and great leaders. Now, if you go, well, we shouldn't have let them be born because maybe we have to pay for something and this and that. Then that's disgusting.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Let's drop abortion.
It's not a good point at all.
It's a great
By that argument, we should be encouraging all of the poorest possible people to have the most number of children, because 1 out of 1,000,000 might be a Mozart.
1 out of 1,000,000.
That's crazy.
No one's saying you should all have babies because when the one guy is great. No, that's not what anybody's saying. It's saying that
that's exactly what you were saying.
You know how many disgusting billionaire children are miserable, living off of, what's wrong with that argument? They're miserable, they're unhappy, and why do they have the reason to have a life more than somebody that came from nothing, from the bottom, that learned to work his way from the top? Why should a rich billionaire child have the right to live when a poor kid doesn't? Because the father's struggling?
Because his parents were not living on the public dole. That's why.
So what does that mean?
What's that mean? That means you aren't making a living. That means other people are having to make a living for you. If other people are having to make a living for you, I think you have certain responsibilities. And one of those things is not to recklessly reproduce. If you can't afford to even support yourself, you're certainly not going to support a child. I think such people have absolutely no business having children. It used to be people didn't get married until they could afford to have children. That was a sense of responsibility towards society. This attitude that you're describing is nothing short of theft.
No, it's not short of theft. What it is, it's called life. And some of the greatest people in history came from poverty.
Okay,
so when you want to murder, when you want to murder poor people, just don't let they should, it's the worst thing because they're going to be living off of us. Don't let poor people be born because maybe 1 in 1,000,000 is going to be a success. It's not 1 out of 1,000,000, by the way.
Right, I'm murdering poor people.
Let's not get off on an abortion tangent here. We're here to talk about racism.
Yes, you brought up abortion. Move on.
Can I jump to a new topic?
By all means.
Whenever these debates happen, it really comes down to the old adage, what is nature, what is nurture? And I like to reduce it to percentages. Now, there was a study that came out recently that said who you are is defined by 50% nature, 50% nurture. And I don't understand that number because identical twins separated at birth, when one grows up poor and one grows up rich, always end up the same. So
always,
very
remarkably
close.
Often. So
very close.
I looked into it deeper, and it turns out that 50% number was acquired by talking about things like diabetes and alopecia and all these other sort of physical traits. But when you focus on IQ and the brain, it's more like 80% nature, 20% nurture.
That's correct.
Is that what you say it is?
Yes. The evidence is very, very powerful. Now, if you're talking about other kind of personality characteristics, gregariousness, for example, or assiduousness, agreeableness, all that kind of thing, they tend to be.
Fancy word guy. What is assiduousness?
That means how diligent you are. That kind of trait tends to be about 50-50 as far as they can tell. But the 20% environment and the 50% environment for things like agreeableness or diligence, people know that there has to be some environmental influence there because it's not genetic, but it's very, very difficult to discover what those environmental influences are. In other words, people have tried to tune the environment to make people more intelligent, and it's very, very hard to do. Identical twins are not identical in intelligence, but it's hard to know just what it is in the environment that results in that 20% difference.
Well, let's direct the question back to you, all right? What percent of a person is how he was born, and what percent is the way he was raised?
None of that is no one knows at all. You could say,
okay.
Oh, you think it's funny? You think it's
yes,
funny?
I think it's funny because there's a huge body of research on this.
Yeah, huge body of research. You got a little stats. You read a little book, and that means that, yeah.
There are, and you're just going to say, that's just white man's baloney, huh?
Pretty much. Yes.
Okay, yes. There we go. Well,
white man's baloney. That's your whole career is white man's baloney. you know, your whole career is white man's baloney.
You know, white man's baloney gave us physics. White man's baloney gave us astronomy. It gave us computers. It gave us jet aircraft. And it also gives us a certain amount of social science. But you can call it white man's baloney if you like.
No, but historically, what about glass? What about structures? What about buildings and skyscrapers and all of that stuff? Where does all of that stuff come from?
All white man's baloney, sure.
Oh, glass? Glass is white man? Blood plasma is white man? Traffic lights is white man? That's all white man?
I think it may be that Asians first came up with
Do you know who
glass.
Louis Latimer was?
Yes, you've got one of these books that claims that the lawnmower and the electric hair dryer was invented by a black man, or the traffic light was invented by a black man. You think that is such an overwhelming reality that science wouldn't happen without black people? Is that what you think?
No, I think that science wouldn't happen without humanity. I think science wouldn't happen without blacks.
It wouldn't
Asians,
wouldn't happen without human beings, yes. But there could have been absolute zero blacks in the world in the Industrial Revolution,
and it would have happened. And can I tell you something too? Zero whites, the same would have happened, and zero Asians, the same would have happened. It all would have happened. Humanity,
You think so?
Yes, I do believe that everything would happen. Yes.
Let's imagine that no Arabs and no whites had come south of the Sahara. You think by now they would have figured out how to make nuclear reactors and jet airplanes?
I think they definitely would. And
you think they would?
And if not,
despite the fact they hadn't a single written language?
Or eventually they would learn how to figure things out. You know, in history. What about the fucking wheel? Who invented the wheel?
We don't know, actually, but
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a white man.
Probably. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. It may not. The white man might not have been the first person to talk, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what? Look, but
you're talking about right now. We're in a certain time where right now blacks aren't doing as good as whites in
when are they
society
at
this. Oh, okay. How about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? How the hell do you know?
So?
200 years. How do you know? How about 500 years ago? But 500 years ago.
Let's come back 20 years from now and have this
you know what?
discussion.
Your philosophies are like a bad pop music song or a big hit film. It's like, look, right now, this is the hot song, but it's not a timeless song. So certain things happen right now, right at the moment, and it's so close to you that you go, this is fact, because right now, black people might not be doing as good as white people, so this means we are the superior being.
Wait. See, look, what I'm trying to explain to you is, before either Arabs or white people showed up south of the Sahara, let's go through the list again. There was no written language, no domesticated animals. There was no mechanical device, not even a hinge. There were no two-story buildings. Why do you think those people who'd been living in that state for hundreds of thousands of years, if living in that state for hundreds of thousands of years, if you left them for another 100,000 years, why do you think they would have invented language and discovered the calendar?
Because we didn't have the internet 20 years ago, because we didn't have planes 100 through time we didn't have rocket, we didn't go to space until a certain year. Through time you invent things and people invent things. That's what life is. That's what the world is.
My point is,
so 100,000 years later, yes, they would have invented everything too.
Okay, 100,000 years later. Well, okay, let's come back 100,000 years from now and see. My point is, not only have blacks failed to invent those things, they have failed even to figure out how to deal with them. Hold on. They have failed to even figure out how to operate them and deal with them and repair them, despite the fact that other people have invented them and presented them to them.
Who? A black man can't fix a machine, is what you're saying?
I'm talking about society. That's look at the all-black societies. Name a single one that manufactures even a motorcycle or a bicycle.
Wait. We already talked about black societies.
That's where financing is.
Jared,
if you could get financing for something,
yes,
you don't just design it.
What's your next question?
Sorry.
No, you don't just design a fucking motorcycle with no money. You need financing.
No, we already talked about black society.
So that has nothing to do with superiority. That has to do with lack of financing.
All right.
What do you mean, all right?
I don't want to talk about black societies anymore.
Let me ask Jaron something. What have you done in your life that's anywhere of importance? You have a couple nerd Ku Klux Klan members who listen to you, and that's your whole accomplishment in life. And you take stats from books and go, "This is my accomplishment."
We're not here to insult each other.
No, but I can't insult somebody if I'm having a fucking debate. This is the way I do it. So I want to know, what have you accomplished in your world that makes you a superior being or better than any black person that I know? What have you accomplished in your life?
That's anecdotal. He's not saying he's superior.
That's a
he's
silly
talking
question.
about millions
That's a completely
of people.
silly question. I'm not saying I'm better than any particular person.
Yeah, he's
We're
talking about
group averages.
Yeah, group averages of right now. No, we're talking about group averages of right now.
Yes.
That you're
group
saying
averages the last 1,000 years.
No, but there's no proof of the last 1,000 years. These statistics you're doing are not from the 1,000. How do you prove something from 1,000 years ago? That's a bullshit statistic right there. We have proof of this from 1,000 years that IQs weren't as smart for these people. That people.
Okay, let's
manipulate facts.
dial it down a notch here.
No, but it's a white supremacy argument to manipulate facts. So he has an argument. For thousands of years, they have been inferior in the mental.
I think Jared is saying that for the past 1,000 years, when you look at white accomplishments and Asian accomplishments and you mirror them with black accomplishments, there's a very disparate amount of results.
Okay,
exactly.
that is what you claim, but if you do some research and historically look up the history of blacks and Indians and non-white people and compare it to what whites have accomplished, there is a whole lot of great things that have been accomplished in history. The
All
greatest
you really
men
got
in
is
history. Egypt,
and we're not sold that they're black.
The Arabs did some pretty interesting things.
Oh, you're better than Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi or these people.
Gandhi was a pedophile. Anyway, please.
No, why you shake your head? Why do you shake your head?
Because
We're off
comparing me with Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi or Michael Brown makes no sense at all.
Of course it does.
It's a completely meaningless, utterly meaningless conversation.
I don't give a fuck if it's one person.
Okay,
no, I don't give a fuck if it's one person. It's not one person. Hold up. One thing. You say it's one person. No, there are millions of black people who have higher IQs than you, me, and Gavin.
I don't know if anyone's arguing that.
Millions. So to go, it's one person because you named one fucking person. No, they're more successful. They're more successful.
I drew a graph that showed plenty of blacks smarter than everyone.
More successful.
Yes, of course.
More money.
There's a difference between general and universal.
Who have had more effect on people's lives than all of you.
Contradict the pattern. That's general.
Yeah, but what is the importance of your little pattern if you're not having an influence on the world?
Question.
Good.
That's a great question. And the reason it's important is when you say every race is exactly the same, right? You go, well, wait a minute. Why are all these mathematicians Asian? And then you say, well, it doesn't make sense that so many mathematicians are Asian, so we need affirmative action programs, and we need to spend tax dollars to equal the score. And Obama today is talking about diversity housing. He's saying we're all the same, so why aren't you people living with these people? Let's push them all together. And when I first met Jared, I was impressed to hear that he doesn't want anyone to be forced to do anything. His thing is, if multiculturalism is so great and we're all so equal, then why would the government have to spend money to enforce it? Why do we need affirmative action? Why do we need all these diversity programs? If everyone's the same, just let it happen. Why are you trying to counter something?
Well, that's an easy answer because 50s, 60s, all it was hold you're an N-word, you're inferior, you have no right to have our superior education. So yes, it takes some time to have a black man and a black family to even.
I'm very glad you brought that up because that was my next point. The common argument with the left about black failure is we've had a 400-year head start.
True.
And blacks are doing worse than whites because they were held down as recently as, the 60s.
And not even just the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. Racism never stopped there. You act like, once civil rights happened, it all disappeared and it was an even playing field for these black men. And you act like racism doesn't exist in America, but Jared, you exist in America. So with men like you, racism exists, and you're saying 40% of our country agrees with you, which I don't believe that statistic.
I said probably about 25 to 30% of white people think that on average whites are smarter than blacks, and probably
that doesn't mean better.
But that's a fake statistic that he made up in his little white supremacist head. It's not real. That's not real. He's like, I say 30%. Look, I could say this. I could say 90% of black people are smarter than you. I can say that and go,
okay,
that's
what
a statistic.
Percentage do you think?
Nobody fucking knows.
What percentage of Americans believe that Asians tend to score higher on IQ tests than blacks?
Yeah, but
what percentage?
People think that they score higher on a fucking IQ test?
Yeah.
That is proof of superiority because they score higher on an IQ test.
No one's talking about superior. No. You're the one who brought in the word superior.
It is superiority. When you say that...
I don't like smart guys. Jared's one of the only smart guys I like. They tend to be boring.
But see, Mr. McInnes asked a very important question. What percentage do you think of people living in America, white, black, brown, purple, suspect that Asians score higher than any other group on IQ tests? What would you reckon that figure is?
Yeah, but we don't know the statistic. You can make up a statistic and just pretend like you know it because that's what you do. You make statistics for a living.
I don't. You think I concoct stuff? You think I tell lies?
Yeah, you do. You make up numbers. It's not true. 30 to 40% of black people.
You asked him to guess. He guessed.
I didn't ask him to guess. You fucking idiot.
No, you said how many do you think? And he said I would assume. He never said 30 to 40.
I didn't say take a guess how many fucking black people think. No, nobody ever said that.
I said that would be my suspicion. I've seen a poll some years ago that suggested that about 25% of black people agreed that blacks were less intelligent than whites on average.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I read a statistic. RA was interrupting you.
I read a statistic today. I could pull it up. Now, is it an accurate statistic? It says if you take a black man and put and white people and you raise them in the same thing, I could grab the article and it's acting like it's fact. It says that the IQ test by the black person is usually 10% higher than the whites. Now, I can take that and pretend it's a fact.
Well, wait,
and use that during my argument.
Show me the data. I want to see the data. I want to see the study.
I see. The thing is, the study is acting like it's a factual study, just like you do. So, because nobody can prove this thing.
Look, so if the data don't agree with you, then the data just have to be wrong. Tell me something.
But all the data is guessing, so you can't act like these data.
It's not guessing. Science is not guessing.
Okay, this is getting pedantic. Can I bring up a whole new angle here?
Yes, it is guessing.
Please do.
It is guessing.
So a common refrain from the left.
You called it science?
Is that whites do more drugs than blacks, but blacks tend to get arrested more than whites, and their presence in jail is obviously shockingly disproportionate to their presence in the population, and a huge number of those cases are drug related.
Yes.
Why do blacks get arrested more than whites when they do less drugs?
First of all, now Mr. Thorburn is going to doubt that this could possibly be true because it's based on actual science and studies.
Science.
But so see here,
science fiction.
Oh yeah,
Rod Serling. You're like the Rod Serling of white supremacy. I want to fucking interrupt. I can't.
Take a black and a white population.
Don't tell me what the fuck to do. First of all,
what drugs have you taken in the last 6 months? And then you actually do a urine test, or you take hair samples, and you can detect what drugs they've taken. Depending on the sample involved, blacks are probably anywhere from 3 to 6 times more likely to lie and claim that they haven't taken drugs. So the idea idea that blacks and whites take drugs at equal rates or that whites take drugs at higher rates than blacks is based on what? It's based on self-reporting. You ask people, do you take drugs? Don't you take drugs? Well, it turns out that blacks are much more likely to lie about that. So the claim that there is no difference in drug-taking rates is, first of all, wrong.
Yeah,
another reason why blacks are more likely to be in the pokey on account of drugs is because they're arrested for other crimes much more frequently than whites. And when you arrest a guy, one of the first things you're going to do is search him for drugs. If he's got drugs on him, he's going to be charged for a drug offense as well as for robbery or for car theft or whatever it was. Those are the two things that most probably account for the disproportionate number of blacks in prison for drug offenses.
You grew up in Japan until you were 16, right?
That's correct.
You didn't grow up around white boys. The white community, you go to a white college, you cannot find a white kid that's not on drugs. You can't. You know, if you want to make up statistics, every motherfucker is on his mom's pills, his heroin, cocaine, marijuana.
That's not a bad point.
Every white boy but you didn't grow up around that. You never saw it. And
that's relatively recent too. I mean,
it's not recent.
The past
The 70s?
20 years.
The
they
70s?
They got kids on Ritalin and Adderall.
60s? Look at hippies, 60s.
Yeah, there was housewives in the 50s, but as far as kids being medicated, that's the past.
I'm talking about
15 years.
cocaine, heroin, marijuana, or any drug you could name. So to act like, oh, blacks lie, just white people don't lie about it. Come on.
Well, I'm sure that some white people do, but in the tests that I've been talking about, all of these studies, it's very clear that blacks are much more likely to lie about drug use than whites.
Where'd you get this from? That black people are more likely to lie. Where'd you get that?
Want me? I'll be happy to send you the references.
Well,
I'm sure you won't believe them.
Yeah, well, where did you
this
get
is
that?
white man's
But I'm talking about a study where they would check the hair follicles.
Who made this study where black people are more likely to lie? That's science fiction. That's just a made-up statistic.
No, when you check someone's hair, you can tell how much drugs they've done in the past week.
Who did they take the test from? Did they go to Stony Brook, Long Island, where all the fucking heroin addicts are? Or Gordon Heights, Long Island, where the white boys are going there to get crack cocaine? Is that where they went? No. Where did they take the fucking statistic that you believe is the real...
Well, in some cases, these are juveniles in juvenile institutions that have access to the outside. In some cases, it's applicants for jobs. There are various different samples, but there is a consistent difference in the willingness to lie about it. Yeah. Now, I'm sorry, this is mere science. This is mere white people trying to find out what the world is really like rather than just speculating. So I'm sorry to inflict yet more science and reality.
That's not science.
I know you don't believe it.
But that's propaganda. That's bullshit you're doing.
All right.
This is science. When you're talking about polls, you're talking about these little polls that you can't even name. Okay, tell me the people. Find me the people that were part of the polls. You know, not just a book that said, look, black people lie a lot.
Well, clearly.
What the fuck kind of white supremacist book is that?
I will be happy to send you the references if you'd like to see.
I'd like to see.
Okay, next.
Here's an article right here that I put in front of his face.
Please move forward.
But here's an article I put in front of him.
Let's move forward.
Okay, I wasn't going to reference that article because there's a million of these anti-IQ test articles, but RA has put in front of me an article by Bernie Douglas, written in 2008, that says, what are IQ tests? IQ is a culturally and ideologically rooted construct, an index intended blah, blah, blah. And it's the information presented above suggests that African-born blacks residing in Western countries. Hey, dude, you're showing me a Word doc. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with this.
Because I wasn't sure I would have the internet.
Okay, but if we go back and forth, getting into the nuances of studies, we can list the studies on this site.
You can list studies. You can list studies of any argument ever.
But any debate with civil adults assumes that the people talking about the studies have checked these studies, or else we're just yelling at each other about made-up facts.
Jared doesn't want to mix the white blood. He wants white people to live amongst.
Buddies with me, I mix the white blood up like crazy.
He wants white people to live amongst white people. He wants. He doesn't like black people in his circle. He thinks
that's not true. It's nanny. I think he has a French black woman teaching his kids French.
The white people in his circle. He wants to keep everything white.
No, he wants the right for people to freely associate. Right now, we're being forced to embrace diversity.
To be around black people? So what do you want? Like,
well, should you be forced to be around black people?
Yes. Yes, you should.
That's fascinating.
Yes, you should be forced to be around human beings.
Well, wait.
Unless if you don't want to be forced to be around black people, you should move someplace far away on a farm and stay the fuck out of society.
And then you don't got to be around anybody. Should black people be forced to associate with white people if they don't want to?
Yes. They do. School teachers, police officers. Yes, they do.
So should we? Are the Japanese sort of choking to death on their own homogeneity, and we should force them to import Africans and Iraqis and Pakistanis so that they can enjoy diversity too?
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about right here in America. That's what we're talking about. Is America
the principle is the same. You're saying people should mix with folks even if they don't want to mix with them. That's tyrannical.
No, it's not. Tyrannical is that we want to keep everyone. You see, I heard a debate where you said that most people that think differently from each other, that's where riots happen. You know, if it's different religion, if it's different race, if it's a different color. Am I quoting you incorrectly?
Diverse areas do tend to have more unrest.
Diversity is a tremendous source of conflict. Absolutely right.
So your cure would be what? To make like
separation. Homogeneity.
Okay, and make sure that everybody thinks alike and there's no diversity in thought too, or just color?
No, not at all. I'm all for diversity of thought. That's the very thing that the people who claim to be in favor of diversity absolutely hate. No, they can't stand diversity of thought. But diversity of race in particular is always a source of conflict, wherever you find it in the world.
Yeah,
well, can I say one thing, Jared? I've said this to you before, and I think it thoroughly annoyed you. But I was in Northern Europe, and it was all white areas. And I just saw these guys in these horrible little zip-up jackets, and they had their bangs dyed blonde, sort of poking up, like they were all in boy bands, and they had these horrible little shoes, these Pumas, that looked like ballet shoes. And I just thought, when whites are not around any kind of color, they tend to be very effeminate and annoying. And when I think about, rock and roll, and you look back at minstrel shows, and they've always been accused of being a racist thing. I think a lot of the blackface was whites fascinated by blacks because they were so much more interesting than whites. And I realize there's some bad crime rates, but I don't know. I kind of like black people. I think that Irish trash and blacks together made rock and roll.
Which is wrong.
And although there is a lot of crime problems and welfare has made black culture, it's ruined black families, but I think all things considered, if we could kill entitlements, they're kind of fun.
I wrote a whole article about the things I like about black people. I think black people have a kind of a spontaneity that's very appealing. I think they have a kind of a generosity. A willingness
just as long as you stay far away from them and don't live near them, right?
If you have the choice not to live with them, if you have the choice to live your life entirely as you wish. But I've had many pleasant experiences with black people. But I think that all groups should have the right to choose who their associates are. And unlike you, I don't think anybody should be in a position of forcing people together who don't want to be together. Do you think black people should be forced to marry white people and Asians should be forced to marry Hispanic?
Nobody thinks that's forced, but I believe, hey, they should be allowed to be in the same fucking school. I think they should be allowed to use the same gas station. I think they should be allowed.
You said they should have to live together.
Yes.
No, I said you have to be forced to interact with them, to be around them. I said yes, you should.
But how are you forced to be around them?
Yeah,
I just said school, hospitals, gas stations, living life every day around people in your society.
There's a building.
He wants a white society.
Should an apartment building have to have X% black?
No, I don't believe in that.
Okay. Well, I thought that's what you meant when you said
but he wants a white society.
No, he wants that to be someone to have that option. If blacks want to live in an all-black area, they can live in an all-black area.
No, he wants America to be a white society. And
I've never said that.
Yeah, you
did.
Never said that. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Well, your whole biggest fear is fear of a black planet. Your biggest fear is that one day America is going to be non-white. And I've heard you say it plenty times.
No, ultimately, I want my people, white people, to survive in some recognizable
Which race of white
form.
people?
And if white people do not have areas in which they are the established majority, eventually they will be just pushed out by other people and will disappear.
That scares you.
I think that would be a terrible tragedy.
Do you think that would be bad, R.A.?
What? Oh, you think that'd be good?
If whites cease to be?
I don't give a shit.
Well, okay. Well, there you go.
I really don't give a shit.
I can't imagine a Japanese man ever saying that.
I don't give a shit if whites, blacks, Asians cease to exist as long as humanity exists. If say 100,000 years from now we're a multicolored person and everybody is one color, I don't give a shit. That doesn't scare me.
Why not just replace us all with intelligent robots if you don't give a shit, as you say?
No, what does robots have? I said humanity. Huh? I don't care if we're one color.
Why do they have to be human?
What do you mean?
Well, he's saying if you have no faith in your own race, you don't care about them, then why do you care about any other race?
No, I care about humanity. I don't care well, this Japanese person did. It's this little baby shit. This Japanese person does this, and this black person does this, and this white person does this. How does that affect anybody's life in any way? Because you're saying, oh, but the crime rates and this and that. But the thing is, humanity will keep going. So if in 1,000 years, if humanity is one color, and the white man is lost and we're all the same color, I don't care about that. That doesn't scare me.
See, Mr. McInnes is making a very important point. I think only a white person would have been sufficiently browbeaten and intimidated to the point where he would say, I don't care if my kind disappears. A Japanese would never say that. A Nigerian would never say that. A Pakistani would never say that. An Israeli would never say that. Only white people have been intimidated to the point where they think it's fine if their people completely disappear.
I'm not intimidated. Okay.
That is a kind of an intellectual suicide that is unique to white people.
Okay, sorry.
But white people are so smart. So how many people? Why do so many white people not agree with keeping white people?
White people have a lemmings mentality where we think we're responsible for the world's problems and we hate ourselves and we are lemmings running off a cliff.
Okay,
I want to end this. We're at 11 o'clock here. We didn't get to Mercedes Carrera, the porn star, because of you guys. I hope you're proud of yourselves.
Well, that is an achievement.
I wanted to say, I have a funny feeling that at the end of all of this, you guys don't actually disagree on policy. And when I met you, Jared, you said it was something to the effect of, well, I think that people should be able to congregate with whom they want to congregate with. And if diversity is so effective, then why is money paying for it? Why do we need tax dollars? I think that the government should cease to pay for any kind of... Okay, I'm not going to continue this invitation, but you said that let's stop affirmative action, let's stop pushing diversity, and just let people do whatever they want to do.
You didn't even have to invite me on this show. You could have just impersonated me.
Is that your policy plan in a nutshell? Because people distort what you say and say you want to kick out other minorities and you want to make America all white. But I think all you're saying is you want to stop the government spending money on diversity.
It's not what he's saying.
There are only two real policy programs that I've supported. That would be complete freedom of association and stop zero immigration.
Okay.
You see?
But I'm sure Mr. Thorburn loves immigration. The more blacks and Haitians and Guatemalans come in, the more diversity there is, and the happier he'll be because white people will disappear sooner.
Oh, don't start a fight at the very end, guys. We're going on a happy note. But don't you see that policy isn't really contradicting? I mean, I don't even know how you feel about immigration, but he's saying freedom of associate, and the government should spend $0 on diversity.
He's making he's trying to make it pretty. He's trying to make it pretty.
Dude, I talked to him about 10 years ago about this.
He's trying to make it pretty where it's not about me having my white society. He wants his white society. He wants to live amongst white people.
Yes.
He doesn't want his daughter or son. I don't know if you have children, but he doesn't want his children.
Let's not bring kids into it.
No. He doesn't want his children to not look like his grandparents. He doesn't want...
That's true.
The famous quote where he said he doesn't want his daughter looking like Fu Manchu or Whoopi fucking Goldberg.
But you're allowed to want that. You're allowed to want that. We're talking about policies. As far as the actual laws,
when you're getting statistics,
he only wants the government not to spend money on diversity.
That's not
freedom
true.
to associate.
That's not true. And when you're getting statistics,
he wants it illegal for blacks to marry whites. He wants to make that illegal.
No, he wants to keep blacks the fuck away from him and his family.
You're allowed to want that. You're allowed to want that.
So does that make him a good person?
It makes me a normal person.
That's
want my people to survive.
How many black guys don't want to be around white people? Come on.
Does that make them good people if there's a racist black man? And
look. Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong for me to prefer the society, the culture, and the company of white people? And why is it wrong for me to want white people to continue to exist?
No, nobody thinks there's anything wrong with having white people to want white people to exist. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. And why is it wrong to prefer the society and the culture and the company of whites? Why is that wrong?
Ask me again.
Why is it wrong for a white person to prefer the culture, society, and company of other white people? Why is that wrong?
There's nothing wrong to prefer the culture of I prefer white people in my circle. There's nothing wrong if that's you, if that's what you want. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay.
I think we can close the conversation now.
Close the conversation on that note.
Yeah, I think that was a good
said there's nothing wrong with him wanting, but that's not what he's talking about. That's not his policies. That's not what he thinks.
Yes, it is. We heard his policies. No spending on diversity, freedom to associate, and no more immigration. And then personally, the guy wants to be around white people, and you don't seem to have a problem with that.
Then his statistics of hate, his fake statistics of hate are manipulated by him because he wants to keep
I hate when it doesn't end in a nice bow.
Because he wants white people.
It never ends.
But he wants white people.
Why can't life be like a movie?
But
which are my hate statistics?
Here's the thing. All of them.
Blacks lying about drugs, I think he's talking about mostly.
No, all of them. Every statistic that you name is just to try.
So if I say Asians are on average smarter than whites,
it's trying to keep you safe from having a white society and having your freedom to be around white people and not having blacks and Hispanics anywhere near you if possible. That's why you give these statistics, and your fans are all hateful, unhappy human beings that conflicted in their mind that when they meet black people, they dislike the black people or feel superior to the black person because of your writings and the stuff that you tell society. But you know what? Your fans and your supporters would fail IQ tests. They would not do good on IQ tests. They're ignorant people.
No, you just accused me of making things up. How come you can suddenly have this ability to read people's minds and know their IQs even if you've never met them?
That's a test we can do. Let's grab some people from your site and have them do IQ tests and see how fucking stupid they are. Let's do it.
Okay, that'll be round 2. I think this went very well. I think that everyone who likes RA will say he won, and everyone who likes Jared will say he won. But what I would like to derive from this is the libertarian standpoint, which is let's stop the government telling everyone that diversity must be enforced and let everyone
then go to another fucking country. If you don't like diversity, leave America.
No, I disagree.
Yeah,
I think
America is about
If
diversity.
Koreatown, they can live in Koreatown. If Chinese want to live in Chinatown, they can live in Chinatown.
What's going to be on their television? What's going to be on their newspaper?
In Chinatown, most people are watching Chinese TV.
What's going to be in the subway when they go up the block? It's not complete diversity. This is America where it's a cliche, but it's the melting pot. And if you live in America, you're going to have Latinos, Hispanics, Blacks,
a melting
Asians,
pot where we tried
whites,
to be American.
Indians.
Now we've all become segregated. And in fact, Jared...
Who's segregated except for you guys?
Look, I'll give you another hate statistic if you'd like. 85% of the church congregations in the United States are at least 90% one race. That reflects the fact that when people are completely free to choose, they end up with people like themselves. Nobody puts a gun to people's head and says, okay, you got to mix the way you got to mix at the workplace. You got to mix on the subway. People go to church where they want to go to church. And oddly enough, black people go to church with black people. Koreans go to church with Koreans. And whites go to church with white people. That is an absolutely normal and healthy thing. People do not spontaneously go for this diversity that you seem to love.
You use that statistic in every argument. You go, oh, they go to church together. How about baseball?
About
how about baseball teams or sports or going to the movies with the white and the black friend and the Latino kid? Okay. Everybody I know in my life was blacks, Latinos, whites, and they all Jews. And let me ask you one more thing. When you say white, when you say the white race, right? which group of this white race are you talking about? Are you strictly talking about an Irish white race? Are you strictly talking about a Greek white or a Jew or a fucking German? Like what is this white race that you are so trying to keep together? What is it?
Well, are you confused in your own mind as to who's white and who's black?
No, because let me tell you something. My Sicilian grandmother got kicked out of the family because she married a Scottish guy but they were both white. But they're mixing. So
those are nationalities, not races.
Okay, so is a Sicilian a white person? Is that part of the white race to you? Is a Jew part of the white race to you? Because a lot of people say Jews aren't white race. A lot of people say are Spanish people from Spain the white race?
Guys, we're 12 minutes past 11 o'clock. Is Talib Starks gone? Okay. Jared, I think we should wrap it up now. We could go on for days.
Is a Spaniard a white man? Where does it end? Who's allowed to be part of your white boy club?
Europeans are white. I don't think there's too much confusion on that.
Okay. We're 12 minutes over. I wish it had tied in a nicer bow 12 minutes ago. I thought we had a good ending there, but life isn't.
I thought we did too.
And discussions don't end like they do in Hollywood. Jared, thank you very much for coming. I hope that it wasn't too abrasive, and I appreciate R.A. dropping by. You guys could not be more different, but I like you both for totally different reasons. I hope to have you on again sometime, Jared.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.